What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm like 99.9% positive each and every one of you guys have already heard about this game, but it's called Palworld. Now, I have not personally played it myself, but I've seen tons of gameplay. And honestly, if we're going to be honest, it's completely taken the gaming world by storm. I mean, absolutely, everybody's playing it right now. It has made a tremendous amount of money. And again, keep in mind, this isn't like, some AAA dev team or something of that sort. So the sales that they're making here are pretty much life-changing for them. It's kind of like an indie story. And honestly, they really do deserve it. They really do. They put in a lot of work. They made a game. It's pretty much Pokemon with guns. That's the best way everybody's describing it. But it really put, Pokemon themselves in their place. And, I think that seeing what's going on here within this gaming scene is good for the future of Call of Duty. And it's hopefully going to open up their eyes. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly why. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, before we go ahead and dive deep, if you are interested in more content just like this, we do indeed post daily here at 8 in the morning Eastern Time. And on the occasion, like I usually say, we do post double uploads, one at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just like this video you're watching right here. So by all means, if you're interested in any of this stuff, subscribe, hit that bell so you can stay notified on all the recent uploads. And last but not least, if you guys are interested in any live streams, I actually do that over on Kick pretty much daily besides Sundays. I start that stream around 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got a link to that down in the description of this video. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, you're probably sitting there thinking, JB, what the heck are you talking about? Have you gone crazy? How are you going to go ahead and compare Palworld to Call of Duty? They're two completely different beasts. Well, the reason I want to go ahead and compare them is because of the fact that Palworld is, again, I shouldn't say it's a Pokemon ripoff, but you could clear as day tell that that was their inspiration. And the reason that I'm using this game is because Xdefiant is also right around the corner. And one of the biggest complaints about Xdefiant, one of the things that everybody says about this game, though, the reason why it's going to potentially fail or it'll flop or it won't be able to go ahead and compete with Call of Duty is because it's trying to imitate Call of Duty too much. It's not original enough. It's not standing out enough. And of course, because of those reasons, people think it's going to simply flop. It will not be able to compete with Call of Duty. But again, this is where I beg to differ. I might have partially thought the same thing because, we have seen many, many, many competitors come out that tried to go ahead and compete with Call of Duty. But the problem is the mass majority, one, were either, free-to-play, very, very indie-developed games, so they're not really high quality, or two, they didn't have that oomph. That little special something that made the game addicting, extraordinarily fun. It was either too clunky, not smooth enough, it didn't have enough variety, way too paid to win because it was a free-to-play game. The reasons go on and on and on, but there's reasons why they can never compete. But Xdefiant, on the other hand, is nothing like those other, imitation Call of Duty games, even though, again, it takes a bunch of inspiration from Call of Duty. I mean, even the head developer, worked on Call of Duty back in the day. So, yes, it does have Call of Duty inspiration, and you can tell that they are indeed trying to get into the play space, the Call of Duty play space. They're not trying to imitate a milsim game. They're not trying to imitate a tac shooter. No, they want to come for Call of Duty's crown specifically. Not just an arcade shooter, because, you can consider a lot of different games arcade shooters. Even Battlefield is pretty much an arcade shooter. A lot of people like to always consider it a milsim, but it's not, It has tons of arcade features mixed with milsim aspects. But this right here, Xdefiant, it is straight up, you can tell, gunning for Call of Duty. But again, the difference between Xdefiant and the other wannabe competitors is that it's actually a good game. Like I said, it's free to play. It's not gouging your eyes out with microtransactions. You don't have to pay for anything that, important. It's going to have tons of free-to-play aspects. It's going to have a prestige system. It's going to have potential clan battles. It's going to have a camo grind system, plenty of content, a lot of maps at launch, It's everything that the wannabe COD competitors, wanted to become. But Xdefiant, I guess, had the budget to actually push it that far. But again, people are in the mindset right now that since it is trying to imitate COD and bring in the COD player base, it won't be successful. It's going to die. I beg to differ, and once again, we're going to bounce back to the Palworld, aspect here. I might not have played the game personally, but I've watched tons of reviews. I've talked to tons of my friends. I stream all the time. Again, if you guys want to kick into my stream, I do it pretty much daily besides Sundays, like I said earlier, over on Kick. You guys can chat it up with me over there all the time. But a lot of you guys over there are saying you love Palworld. And, it's a reason Palworld became successful, because Pokemon as a whole is just not innovating enough. If we're going to be real here, Pokemon has been, I don't want to say on a downward spiral, because it still makes tons of money and, a lot of cash, and it has tons of players. But, as a whole, compared to what it was back in the day, it just isn't what it used to be. And you could argue Call of Duty is in the same exact boat, Yes, it makes tons of money still. Yes, it still brings in a bunch of players. But, it's not what it used to be. They're not innovating. They're not changing anything because they don't have to. And you don't have to necessarily chalk it up to the developers, more so the heads, the tops, the suits, because they are the ones dictating what these games are going to be. We even know from behind the scenes that Sledgehammer couldn't even differentiate if this game was going to be a DLC or a full-fledged out project. That's how little the suits care about, a well-made game, because they know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when the developers know if it's a DLC or a full-fledged out project. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, once it releases, even if it's in a half-ass form, it's still going to make money. See, these companies are running a monopoly on these specific game styles, including Call of Duty. And what Palworld has done is it's tapped into that marketplace, and it has showed that there can be improvements. And you don't need crazy graphics, you don't need anything insane to compete. You just need good gameplay. And that's what Xdefiant literally is down to the core. Obviously, the animations aren't as good as Call of Duty. Obviously, the graphics aren't as good as Call of Duty. Are they bad? No, not at all. They're good. But to compare, the visuals and all that stuff, when you buy Call of Duty, you're basically buying, I guess graphics, a pretty game, right? You're buying something that's flashy instead of a fun product nowadays. And that's what Xdefiant is coming in to change, just like how Palworld came in to change that for Pokemon. And I'm assuming that down the road, Pokemon is going to have to go ahead and adapt. They're going to have to change things around, because there's competitors coming into their place, their play spaces, and they are completely dominating them at their own game, at their own home court, And it's going to happen more and more and more as time goes on, because before it was very tiny indie development, studios putting this stuff together. And again, I guess Palworld is a little bit more indie compared to Xdefiant, but still, at the end of the day, we are starting to see, gaming as a whole evolve. And now, lower end developers are able to get their hands on technology that they might have not been able to get their hands on before. And we're going to start seeing games enter the space that are going to be true competitors. And like I said, that is what's going to help Xdefiant. People say that Xdefiant isn't going to succeed because it's COD, but you know what I have to say? That's the reason why it is going to succeed, because we're finally going to have an alternative, something to rip us out of this monopoly that Call of Duty has been running for ages now. Nobody has dared step foot to Call of Duty. Again, only the very minor indie developed studios would step foot to Call of Duty, and they all die out because their games, let's be real here, even though we all want to try to hype them up and say that they're going to be good, do they live up to COD standards? Not really. You know what I'm saying? COD has somehow managed, or Activision has somehow managed, to run a monopoly on this genre of gameplay for a lifetime at this point, man. Since the beginning of gaming. It's wild to think how long they've been doing this, but it's the truth. That's how long they've been, once again, running a monopoly. And Xdefiant is going to be the first game, basically, that has a bigger budget, that is really going to gun for that throne, and that's going to add competition into the field. You have to think, when people see two alternatives now, when they see Call of Duty and a game that's literally like Call of Duty, it isn't Call of Duty, it's literally like it, but has its own different twist that's free to play and has everything COD doesn't have, prestiging, camos, clan wars, tons of all that stuff, people are going to start leaving. They're going to go try other alternatives. No skill-based matchmaking is a big factor too. The developers straight up said it's no skill-based matchmaking in the game. We don't need any blog posts describing skill-based matchmaking. We don't need any in-depth chats. No, they just said, you know what, you don't like it? Then here. It's not going to be in the game. You see, everybody's worried about Ubisoft, but again, everybody's underestimating the power of putting out a good quality game in a monopoly where, the person who's running the monopoly doesn't give a crap about their product anymore. People are underestimating how well a game can pop off under those standards. And people are mad that they're pushing it back and taking their time. But seriously, If they can launch Xdefiant in a near perfect spot where there's barely any bugs, no issues, the content launches good, the party system launches good, they can get all the stuff in the game, including ranked, do you know how well this game is going to do? Again, I know people want to think that it's not going to do well and that it's going to fall off because it's too much like Call of Duty, but again, I really do believe Palworld has set a perfect example. Doesn't matter how much you copy a game, how much you follow up on a game, as long as you change it up a little bit and give it its own identity in its own way, it will still be able to prosper. Even if you do have a whole core foundation built around another IP, and when I'm talking about this, I mean Pokemon. The game is literally built around a lot of Pokemon aspects, but they put a little bit of a twist on it. They added some more features to it, and the game absolutely exploded. That's what Xdefiant is, literally down to the T. And the thing is that I don't want this to kill COD. I don't want this to destroy COD, and it won't, right? It's not going to, but you know what it will do? It's going to make sure that Activision, Microsoft, whoever, which I'm starting to believe Microsoft is starting to show a little bit more love towards Call of Duty. They show a little bit more respect, and they understand how big the franchise actually is. I have another commentary about that tomorrow morning, so again, make sure you guys go ahead and hit the bell so you can stay notified on all these uploads here. But still, this game releasing, if it does, gain popularity like it did back in the beta, I mean, shoot, the first beta popped off only by word of mouth, right? No trailers, no nothing. Word of mouth was the only way this game spread, and it got over millions of people to go ahead and hop into the open beta experience, okay? If they could do that when the game launches and it actually works properly and it launches with all the content, that will open up their eyes and allow the developers to make a good, in-depth Call of Duty game. Give them the time that they need and give them the freedom that they deserve to put together a really solid project. Because right now, they don't have to. They can half-ass every single game, and it's going to make so much money. But, once Xdefiant comes out and people have a free-to-play alternative, will they be able to do that anymore? We don't know. The game isn't out, so we can't really test it. But I'm curious because Palworld, I guarantee that if they try to put out another bare-bone Pokemon game that does not innovate, I guarantee that people will look at that and say, why will I get that if Palworld is half the price and way more in-depth? And again, I'm thinking people are going to think the same exact thing with COD, A new COD game drops, they're going to look at it and say, why would I spend $70 to $100 for this when Xdefiant is literally free? But ladies and gentlemen, leave your opinions down below. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. Leave a dislike if you hated it. Subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified for more content just like this. And don't forget, guys, I do stream pretty much daily besides Sundays over on Kick. You can find a link to that as well as all my other socials like Twitter and Discord down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.